Hey YouTube, it's Marida and welcome to another edition of the Nurse Lounge. On this edition, I actually came to you all on the community tab and asked you all, what did you want me to do videos on? I am actually off for a little while and I wanted to do some content that you wanted to see. So I asked you all and you all did not disappoint at all. I've had several people comment about what they wanted me to see, both nursing and non-nursing, and I definitely will get to your videos. I have them in my book right here that I use to write down my requests and suggestions that I have. And we are going to do another video based off of a subscriber's request. And that video, she wanted to know, or wanted to do a video on what to expect when entering an MSN program. She kind of wanted to know some tips about basically how to govern yourselves, how the beginning to the end, what should she be, or anyone who is trying to go to the master's program be looking forward to. Now, so when I say this, I'm going to give the disclaimer that, I am let me back up. My name is Dr. Marida P. I am a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for 16 years. I just finished my doctoral degree in executive leadership. I just graduated like last week, and I'm excited to be here to talk about my journey in any kind of way and to help you all figure out what you want to do on your journey when it comes to being a nurse of any kind. So whether you want to be an LPN, whether you want to be a 2-year, 4-year RN, whether you want to go to the master's level or go to your terminal degree at the doctoral level, that's what I'm here for, to do these videos for you. So for this particular video, again, we are talking about specifically how to navigate yourself through an MSN program from beginning to end. And these are some of my suggestions that I have. So definitely take notes if you choose to, and to govern yourselves accordingly so that you will know what is best practice and what to do for yourself when preparing yourself to go to an MSN program. All right. So let's start with first making the decision of let's go to school. When you decide that you want to go for a master's program, and I'm telling you all, just like I told my friend, when I was prepping her for the master's level work and preparing her for the thought process, the work, the time, the commitment, I'm going to prepare you all the exact same way. And my method and my techniques may not be warranted or may not be liked by some because I'm direct and to the point. And some people can appreciate that and some people cannot. With that being said, none of this is meant to be harsh or anything like that, but it is direct and to the point. You can just follow it just like a script, okay? And that's just kind of how I am because I don't really deal well with people sugarcoating things. Tell me exactly what it's going to be so I can go ahead and be ready. I want you to tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when I can, yep, she told me about that, I'm mentally ready for it and I can actually not be in a corner crying somewhere because I was prepared for it. So first and foremost, why is it that you want to go back and get your master's degree? If it's for money, it may not be worth it. It just depends on what area of nursing that you go into. One thing I want to say when it comes to you going to be a nurse practitioner, and I am not a nurse practitioner. I have no desire to be a nurse practitioner. That's just not my thing. I want you to know you have options. Master's degree does not mean nurse practitioner. It means you can take all kinds of routes in the advanced practice level. For me, my route was nursing education. I'm a nurse educator. They will always need nurse educators no matter what, okay? I'm one of the youngest ones. I'm not the youngest. I'm only 42, but most nurse educators are mostly in their 50s and 60s. I'm 42, so I'm one of the younger ones in education, and I have the luxury and privilege of being in education, and I love it. Education is not for everyone. Everybody does not want to teach or have the ability to teach. They don't have the patience to deal with adult learners. I do have the patience to deal with adult learners, and that's why I'm in nursing education. However, you have nurse practitioners, of course, and you have different kinds of nurse practitioners. So kind of research what you want to do. The first thing is research, or second thing is research. Well, number one is, why do I want to be there? It's because you want to help people, you want to educate people, you want to, if you wanted to do informatics as an example, do you want to create new programs, make it easier for nurses to navigate in terms of how they work? Do you want to be a midwife? You get your master's in that. Do you want to be an administrator? You can get your master's in that. There are so many in case management. My friend is actually going to get her master's in case management. They actually have programs like that. You need to definitely research what you want to do, why you want to do it, and the job market for that. That is something that I want to say is very important. Research the job market for what you want to do. Here in Middle Tennessee specifically, FNPs are oversaturated, meaning that everybody went to school to be an FNP, but yet they can't get jobs, and they're still working at the bedside. Not all of them, but they're still working at the bedside because of the fact that there are no openings for what they want to do, making the money they want to make, because they did not research the fact that that job market is oversaturated. Make sure you research for your area or area that you would like to go to. Is that particular field a oversaturated field? Because otherwise you'll find yourself very much paying all this money to go to school, but you won't have the results from it. I have another friend, another soror actually, who she's an FNP, but she still teaches and she still works at the hospital. Okay, if you want to go to school, I'm not talking about her specifically, but most people are going to school to do their FNP so they can move from the bedside to their own kind of practice, so they could be more of a provider in that role versus someone who is still working bedside. Again, nothing wrong with working bedside, but I'm just saying, make sure you see or search or research the market for your area. Is what you want to be oversaturated, or are you willing to move? If you're willing to move to an area that is more lucrative for that position, to be an FNP as an example, then definitely go ahead and move to the area, but don't be afraid to move. Another example, like I know a nurse, she works at a prison as a nurse practitioner, and she's making great money at the prison, but you got to like that kind of work, corrections or forensic nursing. You happen to have to like that kind of thing. I have another person that I know, she's a nurse practitioner at nursing homes. So that may be another option for you if you're doing an FNP, but you are working for nursing homes, seeing patients there. Or maybe you're doing geriatrics or something like that, where that's what you're doing. Know your market, know how much you're going to get paid, and make sure that you're not oversaturated. That market's not oversaturated in your area. Here in Middle Tennessee, you will find a lot of our FNPs working at your little clinics, the ones that are at Kroger's, or your Walgreens clinic, which again, there's nothing wrong with those kind of jobs, but just know what your options are when you finish school. You don't want to go to school to do something to find out you don't have a place of employment. And me, I don't want to be sitting in a little box all day, a little room all day doing that. But again, that's just me. I'm not into that. So those two things. Why do you want to be in there? Number two, research your area for what you want to do. And no, nursing practitioner is not the only degree you can get at a master's level. Again, mine is in education. That's what I love. That's what I do. Next thing is choosing your schools, okay? Choose your schools based off of certain criteria. For one, you want to make sure that it's an accredited school, which I've talked about that for the undergrad as well. Make sure that you know your school is accredited. You can go to the school's website and it will say that it's accredited. You want to make sure that if you are undergrad, if you are looking, you would also, even though you have already gotten your license already, go ahead and check out what that school's NCLEX pass rate is. Now, mind you, you've already got your bachelor's degree. That's not the point. The point is check and see what the school's NCLEX pass rate is, because that lets you know the caliber of the faculty that you're dealing with. Because those same faculty who teach the undergrad, 9 times out of 10 also teach the graduate level as well. And if your nursing students who are going to nursing school are not passing at the NCLEX at the baccalaureate level, then what kind of education do you think you're going to get at the master's level when you're spending more money per credit hour and things like that? So check out the NCLEX pass rates in addition to the fact of, is it an accredited institution? Once you have narrowed that down, of course, you have to figure out, does the school that you want to go to offer the program that you are seeking to go to? Also inquire about or look online to see about what the clinical hour requirements are. Now, I'm going to get a lot of slack from this, but you know what? Again, if you know me, you'll learn that this is just how I am, and I'm going to tell you straight like it is. Any program at the master's level that does not require you to do clinicals is not a program that you really want to go to. And I know there's some schools out there, and I will not call any names, but there's some schools out there who do not require clinicals at the master's level. And tell me this, why would you want to deal with a nurse? Why would you want to have a nurse who, even if she went into education or administration or informatics or whatever it happens to be. Now, FNPs have clinicals for sure, and midwives have clinicals for sure. But let's say you want to go into education or administration or informatics or even case management or something along those lines. that's still an advanced practice degree, because guess what? You are advanced practice. You're not getting a license for it or a certification for it, but you are definitely still advanced practice because you're getting a master's degree at some specialty. So tell me this. Why is it, do you think it would be okay for someone like myself, who's a nurse educator, to have never had clinicals in nursing education, to have never been to a school of nursing, to have never sat in on a meeting, to never have lectured a class, to have never learned how the institution of higher education works, because I've never went to clinicals? How effective do you think I'm going to be as a nurse educator? I'll wait. Think about it. If someone is going to school to be an administrator, but yet they never went to any clinicals about being an administrator, they've never sat beside someone in the executive leadership and administrative offices, went to meetings, things like that, how effective do you think they're going to be as an administrator? Do you want someone caring for you or teaching your child or teaching or leading your hospital or whatever it happens to be who has not been trained to do so because they didn't have any clinicals? So that's another thing to me. That's a personal thing, that make sure your school has clinicals, because if it doesn't have clinicals, to me, it ain't even worth the money that you saving to get the degree. Now, if you are going to get a bachelor's, you already have an associate's, you're going to get a bachelor's degree, I can kind of see if you didn't have clinicals so much for that kind of program. It still would be good to have clinicals, because bachelor's is more about a leadership role versus just a clinical skill set. But if I had to say one program, I would be okay with it if it was the bachelor's degree, when you already have a associate's degree in nursing. So you've already been through clinicals and stuff like that. You're just getting the next degree. That I may be okay with. But when it comes to a master's and above, I had clinicals for my doctoral program. I had 660 hours of clinicals that I had to do in 3 semesters for my doctoral program. How can I be an executive leadership role if I haven't been in executive leadership meetings? I haven't sat on the cabinet meetings. I haven't sat with the president of the university. I haven't been to community leaders and see how they do when it comes to running the community and things like that. How effective would I be when it comes to that if I've never had clinicals? So yes, I'm very passionate about making sure that you, as a nursing student at the graduate level, has clinicals. You need to find a program that has clinicals. Now, how many hours, that can waver. You know, you can say, okay, well, this school requires 500 hours and this one only requires 300. Well, you do what's good for you. But just know, well, side note on that, I have a colleague who we went to the same nursing program, but because her program only required 100 and something hours, when she got to the doctoral level, she had to do extra hours beyond the 660 to meet we had to have a whole 1,000 of post-baccalaureate hours in clinicals. So let me explain that again. To get your DNP, you still have to have so many clinical hours collectively post-baccalaureate. And my school required us to have 1,000 post-baccalaureate clinical hours. So from master's degree to doctoral degree, we had to have a whole total of 1,000 hours. So we were able to use our baccalaureate hours, not baccalaureate, our master's level hours to count towards our 1,000. However, once you added the 660 that's required of my school, and then whatever you had from your master's program, if that total did not equal 1,000, you had to still do additional hours to get your 1,000 at that point. So that's something to think about if you're thinking about going beyond the master's level. Just saying. But yes, make sure you have clinical hours you have to do. After you figure out which school you want to go to, you figured out you figure out the clinical hours, the cost of your education, that's a big component. How much is this going to cost? You need to make sure that you're able to figure that out and see if you can afford it. Also, when I was talking about clinicals, let me go back. If you're already working full-time as a nurse somewhere, you will have to cut your hours back at some point in time to get your clinical hours done. If you want to be effective as a advanced practice, whatever, you have to have clinical hours, and you will have to cut your hours back. You need your actual work hours back. Most programs, unless you're going to be a CRNA, are made for the working adult nurse, okay? With a family and things like that. Most programs are made for that. Unless you're going to be a CRNA, then you cannot work at all. So just know that, and you require a doctoral degree for that too. But this is about the master's. Be ready to plan to go ahead and take off, cut your hours back. You need to go ahead and make sure that you are at a place in your life where you can afford to do that. While you are working before you get to clinicals, you're putting money back to save for that time period when you have to be off for clinical, or cut your hours back for clinical. I had to cut my hours back significantly for both my master's and my doctoral degree to get through the program because the requirements were so much. And so I went from full-time to part-time with this last degree. For the whole last year, I've been working part-time. And we have been living from check to check, literally. We've been making it, but we live from check to check. But I knew this was coming, so we prepared for it. We put money back and things like that. Then COVID happened, so then that changes a lot of things. But either way, be putting money back for those types of things, for clinicals and things like that. When it comes to your actual master's level coursework, you are considered to be full-time, I think even at 6 credit hours, like 2 classes. I would not recommend you, unless you are somebody's paying for you to go to school, I would recommend you take no more than 1-2 classes at the most your first semester or even year. For first semester, for sure, just take maybe 1 class just to get acclimated to the master's level, to actually get acclimated to the format of teaching, whether it be on campus or online or a hybrid program where they do both. Take 1 class if you can. If you feel like you ain't gonna be working anyway, then go ahead and knock yourself out and take 2 classes. Also, when you're trying to figure out what your schedule is, come up with your whole schedule in terms of how long you want to be in school. How long are you okay with being in school? For me, it was 3 years that I did for my master's program and 3 years that I did for my doctoral program. I was not in a hurry to finish. I wanted to go ahead and take my time, make good grades, and not have to repeat classes. When it comes to repeating classes, you can only usually repeat them like maybe 1 time, I want to say. Depends on the university that you go to or the school you go to. Also, there is no such thing as a C in the master's level program. So when I say C, that means you can make a C on like a paper or a test or something like that, but you cannot make a C as a grade in the master's level program. There is no grade below a B. You either make an A, you make a B, or you withdraw from the class. That's just how that is. So you have to make sure those grades are on point all the time, which is why you have to study. They recommend that you study a time and a half, or at least twice the amount of clinical. They recommend that you study twice the amount of hours that the class is worth. So if you have a 3 credit hour course, then you should be studying at least 6 to 7 hours per week for that course. That includes your readings, that includes your discussion boards, that includes papers and projects for that week, that includes all of that. So 6 to 7 hours per week you should dedicate to that 1 class. If you are actually taking 2 classes, then therefore, and they're both worth 3 credit hours each, you're going to be spending at least 12 to 14 hours per week, again, part-time job, in studying, doing papers, doing responses to posts and things like that. If you went to a bachelor's program, most of you are familiar with discussion boards. Well, that continues at the master's level. So discussion boards are to be done, and typically we have to have references for our discussion boards, and you have to have them within the past 5 years, and you have to reply. We have to reply to 2 people using 2 references, and that varies per instructor, per school. But it's very timely, okay? Be mindful that you need to be organized when it comes to your master's level program. You need to make sure that you have a calendar. And at the beginning of the calendar, at the beginning of the semester, print off all your syllabus that you have and put in there all the due dates for all the assignments that you have. All the due dates. Put them in there, highlight them, however you have it organized. Put them in your calendar so that you will know how to stay organized in addition to the rest of your life. If you have children, you have grandkids, or whatever, a husband or a wife, whatever you have going on, you need to be prepared to wear multiple hats. And then you're probably still working too, okay? So then remember that as well. So definitely know the grading scale that you're dealing with. Know, be organized, be prepared. Definitely go ahead and have you up-to-date computers, up-to-date technology, software, things like that. So this is not the time to have a computer from back in 2000. If you're going to school in 2020, you need a computer that's based off of 2020 and Windows 10 or 11 or whatever's out right now. You need a computer that has the latest software on it. You need an up-to-date printer, and you need a workspace, a work area that you can go to that you can study and be by yourself and be quiet. If you cannot find that at your house, then go to the local library. I did that several times. I do have a space here at my house. However, because I have kids and I had a class, this past program was epidemiology, that, okay, I can't have any distractions with that. So I needed peace and quiet. So I went to the library for that. for that class. And so be mindful, have your own workspace, have things like that. When it comes to financial aid in the master's level program, there is not many grants and scholarships out there. So I do recommend you definitely be putting money aside, or see if there's tuition reimbursement at your job, or definitely there are grants and scholarships out there, but they're very hard to find. So you would need to go to your school's website and type in, find their financial aid packet and find if there's any master's level scholarships or programs or grants for people who are doing advanced education. Or if you can't do that, go to Google and do a Google search and do the exact same thing. Type in MSN or FNP or whatever you happen to be, type scholarships or grants and see what comes up. I recommend you do that well in advance. If you can't do that, you need to make sure your FAFSA, if you know what that is, your FAFSA is done in advance so you can get loans if that's what you choose to do. So, find a way to fund your education. Make sure you have that already set up well in advance in terms of not where your classes get dropped because you haven't paid your tuition yet. Make sure you have either a payment plan, which is what I did. I paid a monthly payment for my doctoral program. My master's program, I had a scholarship for that. Somebody had money, a local business had money to advance education for nurses, and so my advisor happened to know about the money, and that's how I went to my master's program. But the doctoral, I had to pay for that. So have a plan for that. Have a plan for the money and how you want to do that. After you do all those things and you're actually in your classes, and maybe you say it's going to take you, say, 2 years or 3 years to finish your program, depending on how long your program is, make sure that you are spending time with doing self-care, okay? And you're like, what does that have to do with the program? It has a lot to do with the program. If you're not practicing great self-care, you will not necessarily be successful in your program. Why? Because of the fact that you are stressed. Why? Because of the fact that you have a test coming up. Why? Because you may be new to online learning. So you need to have a reprieve, a way of kind of breaking away from that, where you can say, let me focus on this. Let me go on a trip. Let me go exercise and work out. Let me burn my candle, which is something I do. Burn my candle. Let me, I have an oil diffuser as well. Let me put that on, put peppermint on. Peppermint, that's another thing. When I had tests, so if you don't have an oil diffuser or a peppermint candle or something, get you some peppermint. Even if you suck on peppermint while you're taking your test, it definitely helps, gives you mental clarity. Peppermint is so, if it don't give you a headache, it's good for mental clarity. So definitely do peppermint oil diffusers or candles or whatever. Anytime I took a test, I would be burning peppermint. And even when I do these YouTube videos, when I'm editing, I will have my diffuser on with the peppermint in it, just because it just kind of clears my mind and lets me kind of focus on what I need to focus on, and it allows me to focus. So definitely try peppermint as a remedy for self-care when it comes to test taking and things like that. Now, let's move forward. We talked about, choosing a school. We talked about financial aid. We talked about your grades. Let's talk about emails when it comes to your professor. Make sure that if you have a question, you are not afraid to email your professor about a certain whatever. Remember that you pay for your education. I'm an instructor, okay? I'm actually now, I'm about to be, when I start my job in the fall, I'll be an associate professor, okay? Because of the fact that I have my DMP now. And so if I was teaching you, you're paying me to teach you. You pay that huge tuition to pay me, to pay, the rest of the things with the school, to pay for the lawn that they manicure, to pay the water bill. You pay, but you pay a portion of that money to me for me to educate you, or for educators to educate you. We have a responsibility to you to educate you. If we're not doing our job, there's a professional way to let us know that. If you don't know or understand what's being said in class or online, definitely ask those questions, because if you don't ask those questions, you're still going to be held accountable for that grade that you get because you chose not to ask. So ask questions. Ask questions. One thing that I did with my doctoral degree is I had me an accountability partner. So me and this one particular student, and we did this the whole 3 years, we were each other's accountability partner. So when we had a discussion forum due, I would say, hey, my discussion forum is due on this day. Did you already get yours done yet? And she'd be like, no, I'm gonna get it done tonight or whatever. Then she would text me and say, okay, I got it done. That's kind of how we kept each other pushed and pushed and pushed. Or maybe there's an email that came out that she knows I'm at work, so I didn't get the email. So she would say, here, there's an email out saying this, that, and the other. Make sure you get this done. And I would do the same for her. Hey, did you see the email about this? She's probably at work. Or even if it's not about email, sometimes like, hey, I have no idea what this means. Can you help me? And sometimes texting back and forth didn't work, so we would call each other. So have you an accountability partner if you can. Find someone who don't mind helping you and you help them, and y'all help each other when it comes to things like that. We even, she lives in a different city than I do. So we even Zoom from time to time. I said, okay, look, I need help with this. Can we Zoom tomorrow at 3:00? She's like, yep, I can do that. So we would get together at 3:00 the next day and Zoom via Zoom, and we would help each other with whatever we needed help with. So that was a great thing that I did when it came to having an accountability partner for her or with her. Now let's fast forward to, we talked about everything from taking care of yourself. We talked about financial aid, picking out of school. We talked about your mindset. We talked about your, the grading scale. We talked about professors in terms of how they are or how they can be. So make sure you email if you have questions. The next thing I want to talk about is, let me think. The next thing I want to talk about is making sure that you have a preceptors lined up about a year in advance. So what does that mean? So if you do have a school that has a clinical component, they oftentimes want you to find your own preceptor. Now, there are some schools who will provide you a preceptor, which is great if they do. That's very rare, but it's great if they do. But most of them don't. Most of them, you have to find your own preceptor. And so I would say probably about a year in advance. So let's say, for instance, we are now in spring or summer, technically, of 2020. Let's say you start clinicals of fall 2021 right now. So this is summer 2020. Let's say clinicals start fall 2021. You should be looking for your preceptors right now. And that basically means, that you want to ask several people, 2 or 3 different people. Hey, I'm going to be doing my OB rotation, my family health or my pediatric rotation or women's health rotation. I'm going to be doing my community health rotation, whatever it happens to be that they happen to be a specialty that they specialize in, and say, hey, would you mind being my preceptor next year? I'm doing this in advance. That way you can find out yes, no, maybe so, whatever it happens to be. Okay. And then I would suggest you find about 3 or 4 of them, because I guarantee you probably 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 will back out at some point in time, or something happened where they can't continue. Have you about 3 or 4 people lined up that you think would be great preceptors in those rotations? Be thinking about that a year in advance and go ahead and ask those people, would they mind doing that for you the next following year? When it gets closer to time to actually start clinicals, you have to make sure, or the school will, or somebody has to make sure there's a contract in place between the school or maybe not the school, but the clinic or facility and your school. So everything's done based on contracts. You just can't show up at the place because your preceptor's there. The actual hospital, if you will, or clinic or university, whatever it happens to be that you're at, has to have a contract with your school. And if the contract, and make sure the contract is current and up to date with the appropriate signatures on it. It can take almost 2 months, depending on the school and the facility, to get the contract ready. So sometimes it takes so long that you need to go ahead and work on that in advance as well. So let's say, for instance, clinical start fall of 2021. Let's just say they start in August, right at the beginning. You need to be working on those contracts in June. You need to be talking to people at your school. It's okay. Hey, do you have a contract in place with this hospital? If not, what do I need to do? And go ahead and be working on get that paperwork done, get the signatures done, and get all that stuff done and submit it to your advisor, whoever it is at the school, because you cannot start clinicals until all the paperwork has been signed, received, and approved by both sides, by your school side, and then of course the facility side itself. They have to be approved by both sides. So definitely make sure you get on top of those things. The next thing I want to talk about is doing papers. The master's level is nothing but learning how to write more efficiently. So your advanced practice, meaning yes, you have to, if you're doing clinicals and things like that, maybe you're going to FNP, yes, but you are learning how to write more efficiently. Learn that APA book from inside to outside. Right now, the APA 7th edition is out. I actually finished my program with the 6th edition. The 7th edition came out while I was still in my program. However, because we were just finishing our program, we were grandfathered into the 6th edition. We didn't have to change our stuff at that point. So 7th edition is what's out right now in 2020. The 7th edition is out, APA 7th edition. That's what you need to learn and have that book on hand when you do your paperwork, when you do your papers. They will mark you off for APA. They will mark you off for grammar. If you need either Grammarly, you need Perla, you need some sites like that to help you to know that, okay, you don't have subject-verb agreement. You are using the wrong grammar. Your punctuation is wrong. You're using the wrong tense. That's not how you spell that word, because again, at the master's level, they're expecting you to learn how to write, okay, and write and be able to communicate effectively and efficiently. And if you can't do that, you are not prepared to be a master's level prepared nurse. So be mindful of that. They're preparing you to learn how to write. At the very end of your program, you're going to have what's called either a thesis or a synthesis or some type of project that you have to do to actually graduate your large project with your master's degree. Be thinking about that project probably about a year in advance. Really, you can think about it as soon as you decide to get the program. Find out what the criteria is. Just kind of, asking people about what it's about. But be thinking of your topics and have maybe more than 1, 2, or 3 topics because you have to get them approved. And if your topic doesn't have enough research to back it, it's not going to be approved. So make sure that when you pick a topic, you pick a topic that has enough research in the past 5 years to back it. If you don't have enough research, then you're not going to be able to use that topic and it won't be effective. So be thinking about that topic very early on in terms of making sure that you know what you want to talk about and be able to communicate that effectively to your advisor. This is what I want to write about. This is why I want to write about it. And because you could potentially get it published in the future. So definitely put a lot of work into that project that you have to do. What else? I can't think of anything else. Those are the biggest things I would say that you need to be preparing yourself for. And then of course there's graduation at the very end. You get hooded at the very end. I recommend everyone go to graduation. I do not know why people don't go to graduation, but definitely it's a great accomplishment. Definitely show up at your graduation and show out and have a great time, and be ready to receive your new degree that you're about to get, or diploma that you're about to get. So I want to say those are the biggest things that you have to be concerned with when it comes to the master's level program. You do need to study. We talked about how many hours a week that you need to study. You need to have your money lined up. You need to have your preceptors lined up. You need to have a contingency plan for your work hours. Have one for your clinical hours. This is something I didn't mention. If you have children, you have to have a plan for them as well. In case of inclement weather and you're in clinicals, you need to have a plan for when they're sick and you're in clinicals. You have to have a plan for everything, because some of these programs do not allow you to miss many days at all, if any. I know ours, you have to be either dead or in the hospital to be excused. That's basically it. Dead or in the hospital is pretty much it. Otherwise, you better figure a way to get here for clinical. So have a plan when it comes to your children, if you have children that you have to care for your master's program. If you know you have no child care, if you know you have nobody who can pick your child up while you are in school, I would recommend you not start the program until you have that stuff taken care of, because otherwise you will find yourself to be miserable. Something else I want to say that goes along with self-care is right now we can't go out because of COVID, but once the world opens back up and we are not dealing with these numbers increasing, definitely, it kind of goes with self-care, definitely have you an outlet to do something. Definitely take a vacation if you can. Definitely go to the movies if you can, or do a red box, do something that's going to allow you to focus on something else besides school. Definitely take time to learn your stuff, but definitely close those books from time to time. You need to rest your brain, and rest your brain. You need to feed your brain too. So the days of tests, make sure you eat something for breakfast, or lunch, depending what time the test is. But you do not think very well. You do not concentrate very well when you are hungry. So making sure you're eating healthier foods. You're eating healthier snacks like nuts and things like that. I actually have some beside my bed right now because I always have those things on my mind for brain food. Broccoli is brain food, not that you eat it for breakfast, but things like that is brain food. Find you some brain foods and definitely eat those things. Suck on your peppermint the day of the test and things like that. How to deal with anxiety. Let me explain something to you. As at the master's level, it's very easy to have anxiety about what's to come, about how to get through a program. But the one thing I will say, I had anxiety with my doctoral program. I definitely did. But a little bit of anxiety is actually a good thing. That little anxiety is what actually, that fear that you have is kind of enough to keep you focused, because you get so paranoid about, oh my gosh, I need to get something done on time, that you're focused on getting it done on time. But if you're organized, that shouldn't be an issue. So, and then one other thing I want to mention besides the anxiety, if you have to take meds, take your meds. If you can remedy the situation without meds, do that. Do yoga, whatever you need to do. But one thing I want to say when it comes to not just the master's level, but any kind of program that you're going to go through is this. There's going to be people out here who are going to tell you or ask you, why are you doing this? Because they don't agree with why you're doing it, because they are jealous about where you're going and they're not going with you. Do not be discouraged by those kind of people. If nothing else, you need to shed those people from you. Shed those people from you, because they mean you no good at all. You're going to have even instructors who are going to say, maybe this is not cut out for you. Maybe you should be doing something else. Now, me as an instructor, I personally would never say that to anybody. But I've had instructors who've actually said that to me. Maybe nursing is not your thing. And here I am 16 years later, it is my thing. So maybe that's what I needed to hear in order to propel me forward. I don't know. But you're going to have a lot of naysayers, and you need to be prepared for those naysayers. You need to be prepared for when people who you thought was your best friend, or people who you thought was closest to you, family included, that they have to fall away at the wayside because they are not who they seemed. You thought they were supportive, they thought they were happy, but you were the only one cheering when you made a good grade. You were the only one cheering when you passed to the next semester of classes. You're the only one cheering when you apply for graduation. You're the only one cheering when it was time to graduate. Watch those kind of people, because those people are not there for you. So be mindful of those types of things. This was a great topic. I know it was a long video, but I wanted to be able to be as thorough as I possibly can and say what I needed to say regarding this topic of how to navigate yourself if you're trying to go into a master's level program. And honestly, these tips right here are actually good for even the doctoral level program to a certain degree. There are a few things that are different, but for the most part, they're the same for that, as well as really a baccalaureate program if you think about it. Again, making sure they're accredited and have great scores and things like that. But hopefully this has been insightful for the person who asked about it, but I'm sure there's other people who want to know too, how to kind of govern yourselves when it comes to going into a master's level program. What should you expect when it comes to those kind of programs, and what will the outcomes be? Again, if this has been insightful for you, please thumbs this video up. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. This is primarily a nursing channel. However, I got life going on, and those of you who watch my videos know what that means. And definitely watch those videos as well. But I'm not only a nurse, I happen to love makeup, fashion, beauty, and I will have those kinds of videos, content on here as well. But this video was specifically for that subscriber who asked about this, and I thank you for that question or that suggestion. It was a great one. Follow me on my social media platforms. You will find it either here in the banner, or also in the description box below. And as always, let's chat in the comments. Until the next time, I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.